Hello, today we are going to answer one simple question. Are complex carbohydrates better than simple sugars? This is often stated, but is it really so? I will show you, as a biochemist, that this is usually not the case. If you go to biochemistry school, you will learn it by the Michel-Mentis equation and others, but don't worry, we'll use Lego to explain why this is not the case. And we'll also look at some data. So let's get started. My name is Patrick Redin and welcome to Black Belt Nutrition. Among other things, I'm a biochemist. And first of all, when we talk about carbohydrate and sugars, what are the difference between them? Well, sugars are 1 or 2 units of monosaccharides. Carbohydrates are many units of monosaccharides. So it's the same thing. It's just the difference is if they are packed together as 1 or 2 units or many units. Also, what do we mean with good or bad carbohydrates? That of course can be very big topic. In particular if you look at whole foods, because then you have to look at where you get those carbohydrates or sugars from. We will do that in a different session. Today we'll just look at the pure sugar and the pure carbohydrate, which you sometimes eat as pure and sometimes they come in the context of some kind of food. If we look at them in the pure nature, what makes a sugar good or bad, or carbohydrates? Well, one thing that we often look at is something called glycemic index, which basically means how much is your blood glucose spiked, how much does it rise after you have ingested the carbohydrate. So that's one way to look at it. Another way is to look at it from a food perspective. How easy is it to eat large amount of it? Is it easy to overeat it or not? So these are the two criteria we will use today. There are more to add. Once again, if you go to whole food, then you have to look at where do we find these and what other nutrients or things comes with them. We will take that in a separate session. So if you look at glycemic index and load, glucose load on the body when you eat the simple sugar, it is so that if you look at pure glucose, which is just one molecule of glucose, that has the glycemic index of 100. That is very high. Most foods have a lower glycemic index than that. If you put it together to maltose, which is 2 glucose molecules put together, the glycemic index goes up slightly to maybe 105 or so. If you put it together to even larger molecule, like maltodextrin, the glycemic index increases even more. And if you go over to specialized sport drinks that are used by endurance athletes to ingest as much high glycemic load carbohydrates as fast and easy as possible, those contain of large molecules, complex carbohydrates, and those have a glycemic index even higher than maltodextrin, which is an art in itself to even produce. And why is that? It seems counterintuitive maybe, in particular since you hear the statement that go with complex carbs, they're so much better or slower. But that's wrong, they're not slower for sure. And the reason for that is, if you look, when you digest it, it goes down to your stomach. Your body cannot take up anything that is large. Both proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, the 3 micronutrients, are cut into pieces, and then we take them up as individual units, so maybe as 2 units if it's proteins, peptides. Carbohydrates are broken down to individual units. So if we have maltose here, 2 units, it comes into my stomach, what happens? An enzyme comes, grabs it, and splits it. Then this enzyme have to go and find the next unit, grab it and split it. It takes some time. What happens if we have multiple units together? The enzyme comes, grabs it, splits it. But now it does not have to go anywhere else to look. It can just keep cutting and keep cutting. And this goes faster So the larger molecule, the faster it can just sit and chop. The only time it needs to stop is if this large carbohydrate is branched, so it has like a tree with branches on it. Then it comes to the branch, and there it has to stop and grab from a new point and chew. But each tree or its branch is usually quite large in large molecules. It still in general goes faster to chop up a complex carbohydrate compared to a small carbohydrate. And a small carbohydrate is what we refer to as sugar. It's the same thing. So that is the reason why the glycemic index is higher on the larger complex carbohydrate compared to the simple sugars. So in that aspect, there is no advantage with simple carbohydrates, smaller units compared to the more large ones. So that's the first point. Second point is, how easy is it to overeat them? Well, it's kind of the same here. If you think of something that have reasonably large carbohydrate like pasta or bread, you can eat quite a lot of them quite easily. But if you take simple sugars in concentrated form, like honey, you take 1 spoon and then it's difficult to get anything else down because it's so concentrated. And if you look at the sport nutrition industry for endurance athletes, I mean, if you buy sport nutrition for kids, it will just be sugar in it because it's cheap to produce. But if you look at professional athletes, they can't drink sport nutrition drinks without sugar in it. Maltodextrin works okay. But the fancy stuff, like one brand I know here from Sweden is Vitargo, they have very large molecules so that you can digest more and have them absorb faster. It's easier to eat large molecules. And why is this? Well, it has to do with osmosis, but let me explain it in an easier way. The body kind of counts the number of molecules. So if you eat something like this, it's like 1 unit that goes down, and then it's split up in your stomach. Compared if you break it into pieces, it's many units, and your body feels this and gets full. If you eat honey, there's like millions of small sugar molecules, and the body feels this. And wow, we got millions of molecules here. But if you put them together, it feels much fewer molecules. And this is something called osmosis in biology. So therefore, you're not really aware of that you consume so much food. You can easily get it down. I mean, if you try to overeat a cheap sport nutrition drink, if you're out running or bicycling, you will essentially throw up if you try to drink too much of it. But if you take it in these large molecules, you can overeat a lot more. Your body are able to handle that. You kind of cheat the system, so to say, with the complex carbohydrates. And this is the same with food. As I mentioned, rice, pasta, bread, you can eat them quite easily. If you try to eat fruit, the same amount of carbohydrates is much more difficult. But that is also because fruits are more diluted. There are more fibers in there. So it's maybe not a fair comparison. But take honey, that's also pure carbohydrates. You just can't eat so many. Your alarm system will kind of, wow, now we've eaten millions of molecules. Maybe we should take a rest, so to say. So on both these points, which I think are quite important when it comes to nutrition and health, the glycemic index, how much to spike glucose, and how easily or difficult it is to overeat it. On both these points, complex carbohydrates are much worse than simple sugars. So that was today's session. If you want more of these or have any questions, just write your questions in the comments. And if you like it, please like the video. Please share it if you like it. And please subscribe so you don't miss out next time we have an update.